It's the Maina family vacation. We're up here in northern Ontario on Long-Legged Lake. Beautiful up here, and this is where we like to come and fish. That's what we do on vacation, is go fishing. And we've got muskies, we've got northern pike, we got walleye to chase. And I've been bringing Tex for years. We always have a great time on this trip. And Seth has been here before, but now he's getting big enough that I think it's time we can torture him for muskies hours on end. But we are here in beautiful Ontario, and we'll show you
our next bite.
Nicely done.
Just looking for the next bite, next bite, just looking for the next bite.
We'll continue to show you the next bite.
Come on, Dad. Come on, Grandpa. The muskies aren't going to wait all day.
The combination of family and fishing seems like a tradition that has been part of the sport since the very beginning. And while off the cuff, East Sox expert Pete Maina might seem like anything but traditional. His family is a central component not only in his personal life, but have been for years, like with his father, Tex Maina, in his professional angling life as well.
Well, Pete, let's try walleyes for a while. Looked like there was a lot of them on the screen.
Yeah. Sure love.
It can't be easy being the son of a legendary fisherman, but Seth Maina handles himself pretty well.
Bucktails, you throw them out and you reel them in.
I know. I'm not doing that because I want to. I'm doing it because it wasn't spinning.
Both technically as a young angler and as a kid, with a good sense of humor from weathering the standard rookie nettling that's just part of being in the boat.
Seth, son of mine, super sloth.
To sincerely absorbing his father's and grandfather's wealth of knowledge about fishing, to learn as much as he can, not only about muskies, Pete's longtime obsession.
Let his tail go and I'll grab his tail.
He swam away right away.
If he's stuck around, normally, you want to, right away, you drop them in there, get their head in there, and then grab that tail right away and hold them up.
But other species like northern pike, walleye, and lake trout as well.
They're biting, Seth, they're biting. Don't know what it is, but this one's got a little weight to it. Oh yeah, nice pike.
You want to net them or no?
Oh, yeah, I think you can net them if you want. Otherwise, I can hand grab them.
Well, I got a net. Ooh, it is a nice one.
Yeah, it is. Well, I'll tell you what, he took me right to my knees there. Made that run. I kind of figured it was a pike just because I didn't get the big head shakes, but after all that rain, I'm gonna get the boat sideways and grab the pliers here. Okay, and he's out, right where I want him. Yeah, that was a nice one there. Fatty, isn't he?
Yeah, that is a nice one, Pete. Nice and fat.
Something was taking a chunk out of him there. Got a pretty good set of chompers. Well, not really. Actually, he's kind of toothless. I guess he's a frog eater. Look at that. He doesn't have much. Huh. Really interesting how important sonar is in general, but especially this Lowrance sonar is just amazing. I know of no other equipment like this that will actually graph at super high speed. We're on a big old Canadian Shield lake here, and there's tons of structure to look at, but also obviously the forage. And it's one thing to be able to track the bottom at high speed, but to be able to actually see bait fish balls and fish, but it's invaluable to be able to do that. And I stopped the screen here, traveling again 45 25 miles an hour probably across an open basin on our way to a muskie spot, and I'm thinking, what did I see there? Spin around, come back, and I look, and immediately I find slowing down, I've got big balls of bait fish, and I've literally got some fish lining up on the bottom here. As soon as you get to that slower speed, then you can take and analyze that with a combination of the sonar and the down scan. Immediately I was able to figure out that I had fish, I had the big balls of bait, and then I actually saved some icons where I saw the majority of the stuff, and then we come back through and vertical jig and fish this stuff. Again, it really is invaluable, and it's something when you've got the electronics like this, never just be gazing around when you're driving across a new portion of the lake. It may sound crazy in a way because I'm in beautiful Canada here, and you probably should be looking at your surroundings, especially when you're driving through a new portion of the lake. Always be looking, because you might get a clue that's going to catch you a bunch of fish.
The next bite is brought to you by Mercury, #1 on the water. Amsoil, performance for serious adventure. Tracker Boats, fish the finest. Bass Pro Shops, your adventure starts here. Berkeley, catch more fish. Mustad, stay sharper longer. Lowrance, find, navigate, dominate. Motor Guide Trolling Motors, engineered for anglers. Strike King, legacy of domination for 50 years. And Power Pole, swift, silent, secure. With the sun coming and going on its own terms, the Mainas have refocused their sole attention to muskies.
Getting some crazy weather, a lot of fronts in and out. As much as that sounds like a great thing in a lot of cases for muskies, and it can be, when they're really cool fronts like this, a lot of rain, a lot of wind come with it, it's generally not all that good. So I'm expecting fish activity kind of in between these fronts.
Getting a lot of raises and even follows on jerk baits with tails, and also glider baits.
And finally, we went from having activity on jerk baits with tails to glider jerk baits that kind of have a wobble on the hang. That's how many different things I'm trying, and possibly finally we've got something here. We just had a pretty hot follow, and this nice little guy here. Oh! One thing that was interesting though is I definitely pattern fish to weeds. I've been trying weeds and rocks. First day on a Canadian Shield Lake, that's something you want to do. You want to try different things. It's basically been all weeds. So now I'm to the point where today anyway, I'm concentrating on the weeds only. That's where we've seen our fish. We've had a couple of close calls. Oh, here he comes, Seth, here he comes.
Should I try dead?
Yeah, let's try it. Oh, boy, that didn't work. Well, next time, let's try speeding up. If he follows in again,
all right.
Let's try speeding up and then go into a deep figure 8. And then all of a sudden, I'm retrieving my baits about halfway in, and I look right over there, and there's the big blonde thing in the water, exactly where my son's bait is. And I'm like, big fish! I love to see anybody catch a muskie, but if it's my son or my dad catching a muskie, that makes it that much better. He hasn't caught a real big one yet. Now my son and I see this long thing attached to his lure, and I'm quite excited now, and more excited than normal. Put her there! Nicely done. I saw that big blonde spot in the water behind his bait, and I'm like, that ain't no weed.
So I'm trying to get this thing, and it was kind of hard because, like a doofus, I didn't decide to loosen the drag. So
I had immediately decided there wasn't going to be much instruction at all. It was just, I'm going to get the fish in that net. I didn't tell him to loosen the drag. I didn't tell him anything, and just hang on to that fish, and I'm going to get him in the bag as quickly as possible. Boy, that's a big old yapper. Look at, oh yeah, that's a 48 there. Wow. The special thing was that moment. You got to be in between these gill arches when you're not expecting it, and that big, long, blonde thing in the water is there attached to your son's lure. Show him the camera.
The Real Deal, real fishing information from real fishing experts, presented by Amsoil.
I catch walleyes for a living, but I also like to catch anything that swims. One of my go-to baits is the Berkeley ripple shad. Some of the cool features I like about it is the rib design with the paddle tail, which really displaces a lot of water, but also has the power bait scent impregnated. So when a fish grabs a hold of it, they won't let go. Some of my go-to colors in the ripple shad is going to be just a plain white. I also like the new racy shad. That's going to be a great color in any situation. Some of the new colors available are right here in the fire perch and the green ghost. So the fire perch would be great in the dirty water situations, and then the green ghost would be a little bit better in the clear water. They're also available in 5 sizes from 2 inches all the way up to 5 inches. So if you want to downsize and catch a few crappies, the 2-inch would be a great choice. 3 and 3.5 inch are my go-to sizes for walleyes. And then the 4 and the 5-inch version would be great for those largemouth bass and northerns and maybe even occasional muskie. The first thing I do is when I use jigs, I use a heavier jig than normal because I'm going to fish it a little more aggressively. So when I cast this bait out, I let it sink to the bottom, and as soon as that bait hits bottom, I know my line goes slack, and then I want to fish it very aggressively. I want to rip it off the bottom, give it a 2 to 3 foot hop, and then follow it back to the bottom. I actually like to use fire line in this situation, which transmits that signal all the way up to me. I can feel that paddle tail come through the water. When I rip it up, I can feel that tail vibrate and feel it go back to the bottom. These baits catch a lot of walleyes, but they catch just about everything.
You know, sound is an interesting deal. For years I was a believer in sound mainly for topwater lures, constantly tweaking, looking for the new type of bait, playing with the blade to get a different pop-plop or pop-pop or tweet-tweet or whatever it is you might get out of it. But one of the most successful baits over the years and most efficient baits are inline spinners. I'm thinking different sounds there as well. And some things that I started doing 3 years ago is just trying different size blades of the same type of blade. In recent years, this has become real popular. But if sound is a big factor, how am I making a different noise, a different vibration, possibly a little bit of a different profile as well? The reason I'm talking about it on this trip, I think we're getting some strikes because of it. I'm almost positive because there's a lot of follows being had by people, very little actual strikes out on the retrieve. We've actually had 3 strikes on bucktails where they bit it out there just like they're supposed to. And just one other thing that we've done is actually toyed with different blade types on the same inline spinner. Again, you got to be getting a different sound there, so it's kind of interesting to play around with. Anytime, especially with these educated pressured fish, if you can show them something different, which could be different sound, that's the way to go.
We've heard a lot from Pete and Seth over the last few days, under the spotlight as father and son. But Tex Maina has a never-heard-before story about his son Pete and the origins of how he came to be a professional muskie guide.
Pete was a young fella. I had him working in the woods one winter. He was probably a winter I shouldn't have had him working in the woods. It's pretty dangerous. But in any event, he fell a tree and was too tired to run away from it. The tree kind of fell and hit another tree, and the butt came up like that and caught him under the chin. And I actually seen his feet come right out of the snow. I could see below his feet. And he got out of that and shook his head, and you could see the stars rolling around. And he looked up and he said that was the end of his. He was going to be a muskie guide. It was the end of his working in the woods.
That is a big northern there.
Yes.
Boy, that was quite a strike.
Boy,
that thing.
That is a dandy.
He just peeled mine. Talk about fortunes changing in a hurry. It was one of those deals we're almost in a mode like you're just doing it and talking. Next thing you know, the water blows up. Got a real nice northern pike here, kind of a surprise, but it's got a hook. You'll probably see it here that I don't even know how it happens, but the shaft gets in and 2 different hook points are coming out in different directions. In order to get this out the normal way, you'd probably completely disfigure this fish. It's one of the examples of when I use a hook cutter and I just get in and start cutting hooks. Boy, this is a big old pike here. I do not mind when these bite when you're muskie fishing. That is a beautiful fish. One thing about pike, they hit with speed. I mean, that thing was an unbelievable strike. And literally before I could do anything with my drag, it was peeling in the opposite direction. But I literally saved the jaw, the corner of the jaw on that fish by cutting hooks. I often tell people one of the most important things you can do to catch more and bigger fish is get good at releasing them. This particular trip, we've had fish hooked in fashions and situations where the release tools have been extremely important. But before you worry about lures and boats and graphs and this, that, and the other, this stuff here is what you really need to worry about. You shouldn't go muskie or pike fishing without the proper tools. They include long nose pliers, quality hook cutters that'll cut any hook, whether it's the shank or the main barbs, up to 7 or 8/0. cut. And then the other tools you should have is jaw spreaders, split ring pliers to use after you cut a hook off, and you can replace them very quickly. With regard to when to use the cutters, anytime the hook is near eyes, in the gill area, or just in a place where it's hooked really badly, you might disfigure the fish. Just cut those hooks. People ask, where do you cut them? Anywhere. Just cut, 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 cut. The little pieces will fall out. Now, the other thing that's interesting is just for holding fish, these gloves are kind of handy because there's gill rakers or little teeth on the back of the gill arches. If you happen to have a gill hold and that fish will thrash, you can get cut a little bit. And then, if you got a great big fish that's fairly deeply hooked, a welding glove like this, I actually put some extra rubber on here on the thumb. I'll put this glove on and I'll go after that fish and grab it by the jaw. And muskies will usually open their mouth wide open. Then I'm able to get inside that mouth, use the bolt cutters, use the pliers, whatever it might be on a great big fish, safely get that out. I don't have to worry about getting cut. Successful catch and release means the fish lives.
Hot topics, leading information, and tackle and techniques to make you a better angler. Presented by Mercury.
So last year I was lucky enough to fish the new XI5 trolling motor. Really impressed with how durable the engine was. The bracketing, the motor itself, everything about it held up great, and I put it through some pretty tough conditions. Second thing is that I think the trolling motor actually changed the way that I fish, especially with that anchor. Anchor is a function where you can hold right on a spot. I even won a tournament up in Escanaba being able to hold my boat right in a spot and cast to specific fish. So now there's a new function called the Gateway. Gateway is basically a way to hitch your HDS units up to the XI5 trolling motor. Just a cord that hooks up the XI5 to your NMEA network. Anything like this unit that's on that network can control it. So the first thing you're going to want to do after you get this all hooked up is configure your unit here so that you can get to the functions. And that's pretty simple. You just go to Pages. You're going to add a new panel here. And what I'm going to do in this case is I'm going to just drag down, I'm going to put a chart on this, and then here's these autopilot or gateway functions. I'm going to put that on that, and then I'm going to hit save. And then I'm going to select it. So basically what I have is my regular graph over here, and then I have the functions of the gateway over here. So for example, right now I'm in anchor mode. The first nice thing is that you get a status bar on your HGS unit telling you what the XI5 is doing. So in this case, it's in anchor mode. But the other nice thing is that you can get to all the functions. So for example, if I go into standby here, take it out of anchor mode, I've got anchor, heading lock, record a trail, navigate. My favorite one again to use is the anchor, so I'll show you how that works. Now the cool thing is that you can anchor more than one way. On this key fob, when you hit the anchor button there, it's going to anchor you right in the spot. With the gateway, you can anchor here, you can anchor at a waypoint, if you've got a waypoint saved on your unit and you want to go right to it and anchor to it, or you can move your cursor around on your graph and tell it to go right to the cursor. It will then take off and go towards that cursor and anchor up on that spot. So you have more functionality in the gateway. So the XI5 is a great motor for helping you control your boat. With the new gateway, you can get to the functionality and get status right on your HDS units to make it even more usable.
Patterning a solid run off the weed beds, clawing their way through constant fronts by way of follows and raises on jerk baits with tails, glide baits, and even the occasional top water.
Oh, boy, that didn't work.
Bucktails eventually prove themselves the trigger.
Show them to the camera, dude.
But after another down spell in activity, it turns out that switching up locations proves to be a crucial reset to keep the bite alive.
You gonna open her mouth and smile for her?
I don't see she don't want to smile.
Just about dinner time. Tex wants to get in for dinner, but let's try one more spot. And this is basically an oval-shaped rock bar that we're fishing. And start on one side, and we're wrapped all the way around to the tip, and I'm thinking, oh, darn it, this is a waste of time. We saw one little northern, we're not gonna see anything. It's literally the last couple casts on this particular spot, and I look to my right, and all of a sudden I see Dad set the hook, and I hear chaos out there. Whoa, look at that big, out there, out there, out there, out there.
You got it?
Yep, I got it.
God, it was beautiful. And we, of course, fought it for a while. And Pete had the net out, and I've never been so happy to see anything go in the net in my life. That's
a big fish. Oh, holy cow. Do you think we made a good idea coming to the rock bar?
That's the one we've been looking for, Pete.
That's the one. I don't know exactly how big it is. That part doesn't matter, but it was huge. I would guess a 40-pound muskie, 52 to 53 inches, you know, somewhere in that classification. And to not only have your dad get it on a trip, dad and son, but then the whole deal of how we worked all the way around that spot, and it was about the last cast I was going to let somebody take, and then something like that happens with a fish that big, and just an unbelievable fight. I couldn't ask for anything else. Got him?
I think I got him. I think I got him.
Holy cow. Oh my God, that is a big one.
What a fish.
You can't even hold that up,
I can't
can
even
you?
hold him.
Man, that thing is huge. That's got to be a 40-pounder, Dad.
I think it's a 40-pounder. It's getting the best of me.
Here, let me help.
There you go.
Man, that thing going like crazy.
And I can catch a fish I can't hardly lift. That's a big one.
That's a big one.
Gotta make sure I got my pants buttoned. Hunger is subsiding.
Seth is feeling better now. Oh, I didn't get a follow, Dad. The fish won't bite, Dad. Today I caught the world record. The fish of all fishes. What? He's talking now. Yeah.
Cut.
The Next Bite would like to thank Jerry and Sue of Long-Legged Lake Resort, North Lake Lodge. For more information on rates, packages, location, photos, and contacts, visit longleggedlakeresorts.com.